The multimedia project discussion for this week's class is to select one area of contention between two levels of government, federal and state, or state and local, regarding a specific issue in education, and secondly, to describe the issue, what has been tried so far, and to make recommendations for possible resolution and improvement of intergovernmental cooperation. I've chosen to write an issue at the federal and state level of government. Is education a right or a privilege? According to Smith and Greenblatt, American laws mandate that every child be given the opportunity to an education. Each state has its own school system, and as a result, there are very different laws among the various states regarding management of schools, teachers, and funding for public education. However, they are all overseen by the federal government through the Department of Education. The 10th Amendment speaks on powers not delegated. The reason education is controlled by states rather than the federal government is the 10th Amendment, which dictates that the powers not delegated by the Constitution to the federal government are reserved for the states. This means regulatory authority over education ultimately rests with the states. The Department of Education has proved to be remarkably resistant to such plans, yet its survival and expansion have not centralized governance over education at the federal level. Therefore, the primary authority for running schools remain with the 50 states. The issue at hand here is the topic of contention between the federal and state government is in regards to the federal government's role of creating standardized testing programs for public schools. The resolution's attempts to address the issue of standardized testing in public schools were incorporated in laws such as the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965 and 1990, the National Assessment of Educational Progress of 1969, the No Child Left Behind Act of 2002, the Trends in International Mathematics and Science Study of 2011, the Every Student Succeed Acts of 2015, the Comprehensive Test of Basic Skills, the Iowa Test of Basic Skills, the Standard Achievement Test for elementary and secondary schools, and the Common Core State Standards. The increasing federal role has dismayed a number of state officials that have fought vigorously through the years to limit the federal government's growing role in public education. This is exemplified by the more than decade-long battle over the No Child Left Behind Act, or NCLB. The states pushed back and applied for waivers, and the NCLB was replaced instead with the Every Student Succeeds Act, which was basically replaced with a much looser set of federal regulations. This essentially signaled a retreat from trying to impose top-down standards from Washington, D.C. Shortly after that, there was another controversy called the Common Core Initiative. As can be seen through the years, the name of the standardized testing changed, but the format continues in public school until today. In order to achieve a resolution and/or improvement in intergovernmental cooperation between federal and state government when it comes to their role in public education, there must be a compromise of sorts between both parties. The states do rely heavily on the federal government for funding and other program provisions. Therefore, a total separation of roles is not possible, and states must be open to some interference from federal government. There are always workarounds and loopholes in education laws, as well as program funding. My recommendation for resolutions improvements to intergovernmental cooperation are to work together, agree to disagree, and follow planned strategies. Also, set firm boundaries and don't overstep agreed upon authority. In conclusion, whether it's NCLB, CCSS, or another acronym that describes the next big initiative, there is little doubt that efforts to reform public education will remain a central part of both state and federal policy agendas. Although public education systems are legally under the jurisdiction of states and legally authorized by state constitution, federal policy interests and the dollars and mandates that come with them have given the national government an ever-increasing role in governing neighborhood schools. Therefore, I believe both federal and state governments' role will continue to be weaved together as each continues to have their finger in the pie. If you have comments, please post your comments on the discussion board. We've come to the end of the presentation, and thank you so much for listening and reading. Thanks again.